Welcome, my friends of the interwebs. Look, this is gonna be a replacement video for my last video, and the reason why I'm replacing the last video is because I had a few friends contact me, people that I know and respect and have known for a long time on YouTube, and they basically said, "Look, you made your point. You made your point. You proved to everybody that you are indeed a Kentucky Colonel." And she literally took down her channel. So that video of her saying that you weren't a Kentucky Colonel is no longer there. So take the high road. And for me, that would be called the road less traveled. So I'm going to take the high road. I'm going to take that down. I had to defend myself, and I did, and now that is over. So I do want to make another video because there was seemingly a lot of interest from people regarding being a Kentucky Colonel, what it means to be a Kentucky Colonel, how to become a Kentucky Colonel, so on and so forth. All right, I make these videos every now and again to educate people about this. Now, one of the things I just want to do is show you, this is the certificate, the commission, the actual commission that you receive when you become a colonel. I'm sorry about the lighting situation. There's a glare off the glass on this thing. But anyway, if you're commissioned, if you're so lucky to be commissioned a Kentucky Colonel, you will receive this. And it is basically, it says, Commonwealth of Kentucky, Stephen L. Beshear, Governor. By the way, whoever the sitting governor is when you are commissioned a colonel is who's going to sign your certificate. When I was commissioned a colonel, Stephen L. Beshear was the governor. I believe he still is the governor. To all to whom these presents shall come greeting, know ye that Honorable Richard L. Hunter is commissioned a Kentucky Colonel. I hereby confer this honor with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities thereunto appertaining. And I'm guessing that's probably either Greek or Latin. Hopefully I got that right. And then there's some smaller print that I don't think I can read without my glasses. I don't have my glasses. It's a bunch, this day of our Lord, the 219th year, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it's signed by the governor, Stephen Beshear in this case. And all official documents in Kentucky have to also be accompanied by the signature of the Secretary of State. In this case, it was Trey Grayson. Because the Secretary of State, this is the Great Seal of the Commonwealth, is the holder of the Great Seal. And all official documents must have the Great Seal affixed to it. So, this is an official commission as a Kentucky Colonel. Now, having said that, like I said, if whoever the governor is at your time, or whoever the Secretary of State, for example, Trey Grayson, is no longer Secretary of State of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Therefore, whoever gets commissioned today will have the new Secretary of State signature, and I cannot, for the life of me, remember who he is. Okay, so how do you become a Kentucky Colonel? You have to be nominated by a colonel. Now, I suppose the governor could just go ahead and make anybody they want to be Kentucky Colonel, I guess. But for us mere mortals, you have to be nominated by an actual Kentucky Colonel, such as like myself. Okay, and I have nominated and have been fortunate enough to have a lot of my nominations accepted to become colonels. Some of my nominations actually have went on to do great things as far as the Kentucky Colonels go. For example, Colonel Shun, who is a Japanese man, Japanese colonel. He's from Tokyo. He is all kinds of awesome. If you know me at all, you know who Shun is. And he has done some pretty amazing work, some really good works when it comes to the Honorable Order of Kentucky Colonels. Now, I'll get to the Honorable Order in a minute. But in fact, I believe it was a natural disaster, and he raised a hoop load of money, thousands and thousands of dollars, and he flew it to the United States and personally handed the Honorable Order of Kentucky Colonels a check. Okay. I'm pretty proud of that because he was my nominee. He was my nominee. And a little secret I've never really talked too much about. When I started nominating a couple people from YouTube to become Kentucky Colonels, the Honorable Order of Kentucky Colonels, which is a charitable arm, a charitable wing, or a charitable affiliation of being a Kentucky Colonel, I guess, they were not happy about that because they were, the people who run there are kind of old and they didn't really understand the interwebs. They got a little freaked out. They weren't sure what I was trying to accomplish. But, I had a long talk with the ambassador and told him in the end we came up with a solution that worked for the both of us. But basically, though, as a Kentucky colonel, it's your responsibility to nominate quality individuals to become Kentucky colonels. And but there's nobody, including the ambassador of the Honorable Order of Kentucky Colonels, who can tell you who to nominate or not to nominate. And ultimately, in the end, regardless of who you nominate, it's up to the governor to actually commission them or not. So, if you wanted to be a Kentucky colonel, and I thought that you were a very impressive person for whatever reasons I may have, maybe it's because you ran into a burning building and saved a bunch of kids, or maybe it's because you served your government or your country honorably in the military, or maybe it's because, it could be a million reasons, but they're all honorable reasons. Then what I would do is I would fill out a form and then state my case for that person that I'm nominating, and then I would mail that to the governor's office. Then they would process that request, and then ultimately it would go before the governor, and the governor would either say yay or nay. And if the governor says yay, then in lockstep, the Secretary of State does affix the seal. I suppose if the Secretary of State had a huge issue with whoever it was, he could refuse to. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of the Kentucky Colonels. This goes back to the 1800s. This is an old thing. Originally, by the way, I want to tell you, originally they were military colonels, and they were aide-de-camps to the governor of Kentucky. But they were actually colonels in the military. And the first colonel was the governor at the time. I think it's the War of 1812. The governor at the time, who was a general, because back then that's the way that worked, he had his son-in-law commissioned a colonel, and it was actually a military post. So there's some really quirky history involved with all this, but it's still pretty cool. And at some point, the colonels got together and decided that they kind of petitioned the governor to make this organization and make a Kentucky colonel thing more of a charitable thing, or more of a distinction, an honorable thing, kind of like an award. Like I said, it's the highest award given by the state of Kentucky or the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Anyway, so speaking of military, I do get a lot of questions from people saying, well, why don't you call yourself a Kentucky colonel instead of colonel, because you're confusing some people because they think you're a military colonel. No, first of all, I don't live my life concerning myself with how other people get confused. If I did that, it would be a nightmare. There's tons of things. If anybody wants to know, they can ask. But if they don't ask, they can look. You look at my aviator on YouTube, and it is literally the AD camp insignia for Kentucky colonels. And on this, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but on this it says Kentucky colonel. It's got 5 stars. That is the AD camp insignia. So you see that right away, and there are videos, tons of them, about me being a Kentucky colonel. Tons of videos just like this. Also, if you go to my Facebook, it's blasted with Kentucky colonel stuff. I mean, he literally blasted. So, I mean, I don't feel that, every now and again I do these videos to educate people, but for the most part, there's a lot of ignorant people out there, and it doesn't matter if I call myself a Kentucky colonel or a colonel. But having said that, one of the rights that I have, and for life, by the way, unless a governor decides to yank my commission from me, but for life, by the way, I have the right to use the style of, or in this case, we'll call it the title of colonel. I can use the title of colonel. I can use the title of ambassador, because technically all Kentucky colonels are considered to be ambassadors of goodwill for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And some of the hierarchy of the Honorable Order of Kentucky Colonels, which is a charitable wing, they do use the title of ambassador. It doesn't work for me. I'm just a colonel. I'm just a colonel. And there's a reason for that, and I'll get to that in a second. But I have the right and the privilege to be able to use that title for life, legally use it. I have been commissioned by a governor and have the right to use that title. Some people don't understand it. For some people, it rubs them the wrong way, but I think part of that is just jealousy. It is what it is. All right, so yeah, let me give you a little history of that. If you look at historically the title of colonel, or the style of colonel being used, there's some serious significant people in history. For example, Colonel Tom Parker. And for those of you who don't know who Colonel Tom Parker is, because you're a little young, he was Elvis Presley's manager. Now, I don't know how he became a Kentucky colonel, but he became a Kentucky colonel. And he always went by Colonel Tom Parker from the day, from the earliest days all the way through until the day he died. Elvis referred to him as the Colonel, which I get a kick out of some of the people that I work with calling me the Colonel because of that. Not that I'm Elvis, but I get a kick out of that. Or Colonel Tom Parker. Or Colonel Parker. Also, another historical figure who used the style of colonel and not Kentucky colonel was Colonel Harlan Sanders, or as some people refer to him as Colonel Sanders. You don't ever hear him called Kentucky Colonel Sanders. Now, you'll hear Kentucky Fried Chicken, but you'll never hear Kentucky Colonel Sanders. So it is proper when you're commissioned a Kentucky colonel to refer to yourself as colonel. It is definitely not only proper, but perfectly acceptable and absolutely legal. So I don't concern myself with, like I said, I don't concern myself with the ignorance of others or their confusion. Because if I did, and YouTube and Facebook, that would be a full-time freaking job. And I don't have that kind of time. So anyway, honorable order. I do want to talk about the honorable order of Kentucky colonels because a lot of people get really confused about that. When you become a commissioned colonel, okay, once you become a Kentucky colonel and you have this, okay, you are a Kentucky colonel. You are automatically invited to engage with or become part of the Honorable Order of Kentucky Colonels. And that is basically a charitable wing, if you will, that the only prereq to be included is that you are a colonel. You are actually a commissioned colonel. And if you want to be an active member, the first year they give you an active membership for free. After that, you have to donate. I think it's either every year or every 3 years. I think it's either at least $100 or $300. I don't really remember. But that is to be active in their charitable giving. So basically, let me give you an example. When you do donate money, and this might sound cheesy to some people or look cheesy to some people, but it's the little things in life. This is called the Medal of Distinction, and I got that for donating. I want to say it was $100, but it might have been $300. Back before Barack Obama drove my silly ass to the poorhouse. That's right, I used to have money. And so I gave freely because that's what you do. They do a wonderful job. The Honorable Order of Kentucky Colonels does an amazing job in charitable efforts. Yes, tons and tons of charitable efforts. They're just a really well-run organization. Although I have had my issues with them, in the past, and we won't get into that. Well, I'll get into it a little bit. When I first when I first became a Kentucky colonel, I was all excited, and I do in my heart feel like if you are a Kentucky colonel, the honorable thing to do is seek out others that are qualified and deserve the recognition and nominate them. And I really feel that way. Some colonels feel like scarcity is a better thing, and so if you're a colonel, you shouldn't nominate hardly anybody because the less colonels, the better. I don't feel that way. I think that, to me, is the wrong attitude to take. But the Honorable Order, they weren't sure. They were older people that were running it, and they weren't really sure what I was doing. We had a meeting of the minds, and ultimately we came to an agreement. But as a colonel, you have the right to nominate anybody you want for any reason you want. Now, you, being an honorable person, should always make sure that the person you're nominating is a qualified individual. But it is your right to nominate whoever you want for whatever reason you want. And now I have nominated several people over the years, a lot of them that I knew on YouTube, that have become amazing, amazing colonels. And they were amazing people to begin with. That's why I nominated them. I didn't nominate any schlups. That's a fact. And I will tell you that almost every one of my nominees, almost every one of them became colonels right away. There were a couple that had to I had to resubmit a couple of times, and I think there was maybe one that they just rejected, and I don't know why. But just the way it is. You're not guaranteed. A lot of people think, I can make you a Kentucky colonel. I cannot. I can only nominate you to the governor. And if I write it up right, though, chances are very good because you're considered an honorable person. If I write it up the right way, and I don't want to say blow smoke, but I really have to accentuate your attributes, your positive attributes. The governor usually says, "Sounds great," sounds great, and then he signs the signature. It's just the way it works. But there have been, I think, one person, and I just like I said, I don't know why. I resubmitted it a couple of times, and just, I don't know. And I don't push it because it's like, hey, I'm not going to give the governor's office any real grief over it because they have their reasons, and it is what it is. And I wish they would give you a letter or something telling you this is why we rejected your application for somebody to become a colonel, but they don't do that. And I'm sure it's because they have a lot of these nominations probably every day. So anyway, the other thing about being a colonel for me is, my roots come from Kentucky. Now, you do not have to be a Kentuckian to become a colonel. Tons and tons of colonels outside of the state. In fact, I don't live in the state, even though I do have a house in Kentucky. I don't live there. My dad was born and raised in a place called Mockingbird Holler in 4 Mile, Kentucky. And, he grew up in a house with no electricity and no water and no running water in the house. And, they had a coal stove for heat. And my dad didn't have electricity until he was 17. But, there was a guy that used to come visit. His name was Harlan Sanders, Colonel Sanders. Harlan, Kentucky, or not, excuse me, Corbin, Kentucky, which is where the original Sanders Court was at, the initial place where he cooked chicken, is not that far from my place in Kentucky. And that's a very small community of people in that area of the country. So a lot of people know everybody, basically. But yeah, Harlan would come over and have dinner with my grandparents, and they knew him very well. And my dad, as I was growing up, would tell stories about, the great Kentucky Colonel. And the only thing that saddens me about any of this is that my father was not alive to see me become commissioned a colonel. And that does sadden me because he would have been very proud of that. Astonished. He would have been astonished. But he'd been very, very proud of that. Now, why am I a Kentucky colonel? How did I get the honor of becoming a Kentucky colonel? And this is going to sound weird, but it's the truth. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. When I was commissioned, I was basically promised to kind of keep a lid on it for 10 years. Now, about 5 of those years have passed, I think, somewhere around in there. So in another 5 years, you'll hear all about it. And it will be an epic story. And I can tell you this much. I rendered service to my government, and I did so at a fair amount of risk to my life, my health, my well-being. And it is what it is, and I can't wait to tell that story someday, but I just can't do it right now, and you'll know why when I do tell the story. And there will be people who know me 5 years from now because there are people who know me that have known me on YouTube for 5 years, and I ain't going anywhere. So in 5 years, if you don't hear this story, you need to bust my balls publicly about it because I can tell you this, I can't wait to tell the story. But I'm very proud of being a Kentucky colonel. I, in my heart, believe that I earned the title and I earned the right to be a Kentucky colonel. I don't want to start blowing my horn too much, but yeah, I mean, now there are people who, hey, it's like anything else in life. There are some people who became a Kentucky colonel because they knew somebody. And that person, was a drinking buddy or whatever, and, they were like, oh, yeah, and they wrote some bullshit and got it passed. Those people exist. That person isn't moi, is not me. So anyway, hopefully that answers some of your questions about being a Kentucky colonel. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Hopefully it does. Now, I told you at the beginning that there was going to be something special at the end of this video, and there is. Like I said, to me, if you are so honored to become a Kentucky colonel, and it is a big honor, it is your duty to seek out those who also deserve the honor and to kind of broaden, broaden the whole scope of things and make it a much bigger thing. So here's the thing: if you know somebody that you think is worthy of being a Kentucky colonel, okay, I want you to make a video telling me about this person, and I want you to make sure to send that video to me. I would also like, if you think you are that worthy person, okay, I would like you to make a video, and I'd like you to say, hey, Colonel Hunter, I think I'm worthy, and this is why. Now, I know that a lot of people think that it's not classy to blow your own horn. However, my good great-grandmother used to say all the time, if you don't blow your own horn, who's going to? Now, understand this. I am very serious about the quality of person that I nominate to become a colonel. Very, very serious about that. And I will do my due diligence, and I will investigate, and I would like to see some references too. If you ain't got anybody that'll stand up for you, don't waste my time. Okay. Now, I cannot guarantee you that I will choose you to nominate. And I cannot guarantee you that the governor will actually commission you once I do nominate you. But you know what? If you think you got what it takes, if you think that you've done some good work, then let me know. Let me know. And by the way, nothing puts a smile on my face quite like nominating people who have fought for this country. And that's a fact. And if you are I don't care if you're a private or a general, makes no difference to me. You fought for your country, you earned my respect, and in my opinion, for what it is, you were extremely qualified to be a Kentucky Colonel. I mean, as long as you served honorably. So that's all I got for you guys. Hopefully I get some interesting videos from people that are interested in this. And like I said, if you know somebody that you think has done some good work in their life, maybe it's charity, maybe it's military, by all means, enlighten me. And so let's see if we can't give them an honor. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Everybody take care. See ya!